Remember, this attack that happened was outside the maritime jurisdiction of India, but extremely strategic when it comes to the attack that happened in the Indian Ocean. Let me take this back to my colleague Pranay, who stays with us on the broadcast. Pranay, given the intensity of this attack, these survivors could not have probably been saved had the Sri Lankan Navy not come to their rescue. But they immediately got them off board, the ones who managed to survive, and then took them to the shore, provided immediate medical help. This, as we also understand that the Iranian authorities say that the 87 sailors who lost their lives, their bodies should be sent back.
Absolutely, Suesha. And if you see the statement put out by a statement given by the Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran, who's in India, he said that, that ship came to India to participate in IFR, International Fleet Review, as well as to participate in the Milan 2026 exercise. And after that, that ship was returning back. And in fact, that ship was not carrying, a sizable number of armament. And in fact, that only came for the ceremonial purpose, and it was returning back, but it was shot down, in fact, torpedoed by an American submarine in the international waters, 40 nautical miles off the coast of Galle of Sri Lanka. And in fact, not only Sri Lankan Navy, sent its assets or the ships for the rescue operation of these Iranian sailors, who have suffered the loss of life in this attack. But also the Indian Navy also dispatched P-8I, the Poseidon 8, the reconnaissance, long-time maritime reconnaissance and surveillance aircraft. When we received, the Indian Navy received the distress call, from the Iranian side about this ship incident. And after that, since the Sri Lankan coast was nearer to this incident, and that's why the Sri Lankan Navy was turned out to be the first responder to this incident. They have brought back the dead bodies. Currently those bodies of over 80 sailors are being kept into in a medical facility of Galle in the morgue. And around the 32 sailors, as you mentioned, are receiving the medical aid and assistance there. And in fact, Iran has asked Sri Lankan authorities to send the bodies back to Iran. However, the Sri Lankan authorities have not yet declared that how will they be sending back their bodies back to Iran.
Oh yes, absolutely, Pranay. But Sri Lanka putting out that message of peace and humanity, saying that they will never hesitate to protect humanity at a time when there is increasing pressure to take sides, given how we've also seen domestic politics turn out. And while this attack was outside the maritime jurisdiction of India, but questions that were also being asked as security concerns loom large. But there, Sri Lankan Navy immediately coming to the help of those who needed to be carried out, who needed the rescue operations. And now, of course, they are also emphasizing on neutrality and saying that they are not taking sides amid this war.
Yeah, Suesha, can you please repeat your question?
I'm saying that even at a time when there is increasing pressure for various countries to take sides, and where exactly do they stand in this ongoing war, we've also seen how the domestic politics played out in India. But Sri Lanka really saying that they will never hesitate to protect humanity and they will not take sides, they maintain neutrality.
Suesha, if you see that, as far as India's case is concerned, and as far as Sri Lanka's case is concerned, no country had their continental shelf, the territorial waters or exclusive economic zone where the incident has happened. Forget about the India's exclusive economic zone. Even this incident happened outside the exclusive economic zone of Sri Lanka. So it happened around 40 nautical miles off the coast of Galle. But since it was closer to Sri Lanka, that's why they became the first responder. But Indian Navy also flew the P-8I surveillance aircraft in the search and rescue operation, so that we can relay this information, we can share that information. And Government of India also responded to that, this incident, because this is a humanitarian crisis. This incident happened, and in fact, if the lives can be saved, since Sri Lanka was, it was easy for the Sri Lankan Navy to send their military assets, to send their ships, and therefore they sent those ships, because Indian Navy also directed, some of its assets. But by the time the Sri Lankan ships have already reached to the location where the ship wreckage was there, it was sinking, and people were struggling to survive. Those Iranian sailors, and that's why the Sri Lankan Navy rescued them. But as far as the humanitarian assistance is concerned, look,
Also coming in of how the Sri Lankan Navy is still searching through its waters for the crew members of Iris Dina, for all those who are still missing.